Have you ever wanted to create your own sci-fi or fantasy or horror MetaHuman creatures, but don't have the time, money, or experience to learn a complicated character pipeline? Well, in this video, I will show you how to go from a simple ChatGPT prompt all the way to a fully rigged, custom MetaHuman fantasy creature, ready for professional-grade facial animation that you can capture with any camera. You can create endless humanoid creatures with fairly compelling results. And the best part is, we will be using tools that are very cheap or completely free. So if you want to get started making MetaHuman creatures as quickly and cheaply as possible, this one's for you.
Oh yeah, this is all in Unreal Engine 5.6.
So some of my earliest videos on this channel featured custom MetaHuman creatures like Marvin the Talking Pig, some creepy but jovial orcs, a troll, and Gigantic Joe, a gigantic Sasquatch. These characters were awesome, but I couldn't make them myself. I had to hire talented character artists who use complex tools like MetaPipe and Maya to convert these characters I had found on the marketplace to MetaHumans. And honestly, as a filmmaker who kind of stumbled into using Unreal Engine, this always looked way beyond my skill set. I'm not a traditional animator or 3D modeler. I'm a guy who figured out how to use some mocap software and MetaHuman Animator, which isn't too hard. But recently, thanks to a community member named Zen on my Discord, we've figured out what I think is a very compelling pipeline to generate high-quality custom MetaHumans using AI tools and without expensive software like Maya. Now, the two main pieces of the pipeline that make this possible are a program called Wrap by Faceform and YVO3D, the AI 3D mesh generator. Wrap is the tool used to wrap the MetaHuman topology around your AI-generated mesh so that it can be used in the MetaHuman Creator to generate your custom MetaHuman. And then you can use any camera to animate that character's face with MetaHuman Animator. Wrap has an indie license that costs $570, as well as 2 professional licenses. But they offer a 30-day fully functioning free trial, so you can follow this tutorial nearly for free. The only money you will have to pay is a minimum $10 for a subscription to YVO3D. And that $10 will get you about 4 or 5 mesh generations. And in my opinion, YVO3D is worth it, as far as I can tell. But we will get to that in a minute. So you could use this tutorial to convert any humanoid character to a MetaHuman, one that you might find on Fab or a third-party marketplace. You would just bring the character mesh into Wrap instead of the AI-generated one. So this means that high-quality custom characters like the ones I've used on my channel can become available to anyone willing to follow this tutorial. Now, we're still working out the body and wardrobe pipeline, but you can see we did have some success in creating some custom armor for our goblin character. You will see there is a ton wrong with it, but with the right tools and prompts, I think we can get a pipeline created that would include custom modular clothing. And I should mention, this is not meant to replace a professional pipeline for cinematics or games, at least with the AI component. This is very experimental, but as you can see, I think it yields really interesting results. So you'll begin the process by creating prompts in ChatGPT 4o to generate detailed, accurate reference images. The prompt itself specifies that the image should clearly show the head and upper shoulders, the character looking directly into the camera with a neutral expression, mouth and lips closed, and flat, neutral lighting with minimal shadow or specular details. And once you nail the prompt, which I've included free in the video description, It's super easy and fun to generate tons of character variations. I used ChatGPT for the image because it had by far the best prompt adherence, at least for someone like me who isn't much of a prompt wizard. You can see here the initial image and the final MetaHuman results and how it changes quite a bit along the pipeline. However, I really think the quality of the final result depends on the quality of the initial input image, since your generated 3D mesh needs to fit the parameters of the MetaHuman generator. Unfortunately, ChatGPT has really strong guardrails, so generating anything like realistic gore or even mild nudity was impossible, including just generating shirtless characters, unless you add stylized to it. That's why for my zombies, which I made a ton of, I used an uncensored image generator called Mage. And Mage was great for realistic gore, but it was really tough to control, and honestly, the results were a bit too graphic for YouTube. Even though the 3D generated model and the final MetaHuman look, I think, stylized enough, there was something about the uncensored images that made me think it would get flagged. Today, for the tutorial, instead of doing a zombie, I'm going to do this fantasy dragonling character, which was made using the included prompt. And just to be clear, I'll be making just the head. The armor that you see in these shots is from the medieval armor pack from Polyphoria. So after generating the image, you upload it directly to YVO3D, and this part is fast. You get a detailed 3D mesh in about 10 minutes at a minimal cost. I think it's about $2 per mesh with high quality 4K textures. And as you can see, I generated a lot of meshes. It was really fun because it got the head meshes pretty accurately, especially once I got the original image prompt down.
I did try to generate a full body and head mesh combined, which you can then, wrap and generate a MetaHuman out of, but you can see that the quality of the head, really goes down when you try and generate the whole body. And that's why I've pursued this pipeline of generating the head and body separately and merging them, which is a little more difficult and we're still figuring out, but the quality is so much higher.
Now, these meshes look incredible at first glance, but much of that detail, the shadows and the reflections, is baked into the textures and not actually modeled geometry. However, you can still enhance details significantly by adjusting the normal map intensity in the material instance in Unreal, which adds a lot of depth and detail under direct lighting. You can also change properties like the roughness, which is great for metallic characters like this robot, or wet or slimy creatures like the mermaid. You really want to get your initial prompt image to have as few shadows as possible, since they can get baked into your character material and make it look like they have heavy makeup on. And as you will see, the topology of these meshes is not that great. So Faceform Wrap makes retopology super easy. There's no Maya required. This part of the process looks tedious, but really isn't too hard and becomes very quick once you get the hang of it, maybe 10 to 20 minutes. After wrapping, you get clean MetaHuman topology ready to head to Unreal. So finally, we import it into MetaHuman Creator, fine-tune, and use MetaHuman Animator to bring it to life with performance capture. And the results are honestly stunning, given how little manual effort goes into it. Sure, cleanup is needed, especially around eyes and lips, but it's minimal, and of course that depends on, what your use case and standards and personal taste are, but for me, this is interesting enough to make this pipeline worth pursuing. So future episodes will cover generating wardrobes, modular clothing for overcrowd simulation, and even custom body shapes, so stay tuned. Remember, this pipeline isn't meant to replace professional character artists. but it opens up amazing creative possibilities, especially for creating tons of sci-fi or fantasy creatures like this. All prompt references and assets are included below, so please explore, experiment, and let me know what you create. All MetaHumans you see in this video, including a pack of 8 zombies, will be available for sale either on Patreon or Fab. The link will be below. Of course, these will be available completely free for my amazing Patreon subscribers, as well as anyone who purchased a beta copy of Overcrowd, who have all been super patient and supportive. And you'll be happy to know that Overcrowd is almost ready for Fab. It may even be by the time I finish this video. Either way, a link will be below as soon as that's ready, and you'll know if you bought it on Patreon as well. Also, huge thanks again to Zen for his help developing this workflow. Check out his channel, link below. And Zen's services are also for sale if you want someone to create a MetaHuman for you using this pipeline. All right, if you found this helpful, like, subscribe, and please consider joining the Discord. All right, keep watching for the full step-by-step tutorial on custom MetaHuman creature heads.
Okay, so I'm going to try and show you in the most efficient way possible how I went from, this portrait image that was generated in ChatGPT 4.0 to a fully functioning MetaHuman. So I've already talked about all the different pieces of this pipeline, but I'll just go over them again really, really quickly right here so you can kind of just follow along. And so here we are in ChatGPT 4.0. And you start by generating your reference image that you'll feed to the 3D model generator. And the way you do that is using a prompt like this. And this is pretty long. And I tried to design it in a way that gives a bunch of ideas for characters. So the whole idea was something that people could just take and paste into ChatGPT 4.0 and get a reference image of their own and start generating right away, and it would have all of these parameters that are needed in order to get a nice clean generation. So I will include this whole prompt in the folder of assets that I will link below in the description so that you can follow along with the tutorial. So anyway, once you generate the character that you like that is within the parameters listed above, you then just download this image to your computer, and you will then upload it to the YVO3D website, which we will now jump to. Okay, so here we are at YVO3D.com, and it looks like in order to do the tutorial properly, you'll need to do the $10 subscription, which gives you 500 credits, which I think will give you about 4 generations, or maybe 2 heads and 2 full bodies. So not much, but it's enough to do the bare minimum. And the thing that you want is this real 4K generation. That is what will give you, the really quality textures. I suppose you could try the free version and try upscaling it, but yeah, I think it's worth it for this. And those 500 credits will go fast, but that will be enough to do a couple generations. So go ahead and grab that one. Okay, so let's come over to our 3D AI workspace. And then down here, you'll see where you can actually prompt the 3D model through text. But I didn't really like the results of that. You'll burn through your credits pretty quickly. It's better to use an image. So here you'll select your poly count. And, when doing the head, you can go all the way up to 200,000 polygons. But honestly, it feels a little overkill. I feel like it past 100,000, it's not really adding too much geometry. I guess if you have like a lot of sort of crazy protrusions or something, but for our character, we'll probably be okay with this amount here. You select the image that you downloaded from ChatGPT here. So here's the image that we downloaded. And then down here, you can select the resolution of your material. And so you can see as you increase that, the amount of credits you use increases. And that's pretty much all you need to do and all you can do. That's pretty much all the input you can do. So just hit generate. Okay, so once that's done, you can come over here and just click on it, and that looks pretty good, I think. You know, it's not the most complicated scan, but I think it did pretty well. You know, there's, you know, it got a little creative with the back of the head there. I'm not really sure what those weird eye things are. And, you know, you can see that a lot of the detail is just baked into the material, but there is still, you know, there's still some there, you know, in the geometry. And cool. So we'll go ahead and convert this to a MetaHuman. So you can just go over here and click download. Okay, so we're going to use Blender to convert the model to an OBJ so it can be pulled into Wrap, as well as extract the texture files. So go ahead and just open up Blender and hit A and delete to delete the default cube. Bye-bye cube. And we'll go to import and we'll do .glb. And then you can just go ahead and select the model you downloaded and import that. And there we go. And oh god, how do I move around in Blender? Okay, hold down middle mouse and move around, and then you can switch to the unlit version here. All right, that's looking pretty good. Okay, so we're gonna extract the textures that come with the 3D model. So go ahead and click on that, and then come up here to the shading tab. And then that will open up this window, and down here, let's see, we're looking at the material, and these orange things are the 3 textures that are putting together the material. So we have, you know, our base color that's giving him all the, you know, the actual color. We have a metallic and roughness mask, and then we have a normal map. All right, so let's just go ahead and select that. That'll show up over here. Go up to this little menu here and go to image and save as. And here you can see I've actually already exported the 3 materials as PNGs, and you know, I just named it Demon N for the normal, Demon R for the roughness, and Demon D for diffuse, or the base color, I guess. So I'm just going to cancel that, and you know, as you can see, you just click on these 3 and save those images like that. Okay, so let's come back up here to the layout tab and select the model, and we're going to export it so we can bring everything into Wrap. So come up to File, Export, and then come down to OBJ, and I'm going to name mine Demon 3 since I've already exported a few. And then over here, let's change the scale from 1 to 10. And make sure these are all correct. And that looks good. Go ahead and hit export. Okay, so here we are in Wrap. And this software is what we're going to use to wrap the MetaHuman topology around our mesh that we have generated. Because what we got from the 3D generator from YVO3D is not a great topology, and I'll show you that once we pull it into here. And in order for it to work with the MetaHuman Creator, it needs to match, you know, it needs to match the MetaHuman topology. And so you need a piece of software like this that can take the MetaHuman topology and wrap it around this. And so that's how I know how to use this, and I will show you how to do that right now. So over here in the graph, we are going to create some load geometry nodes. So this first one we will use to load the MetaHuman topology. So I'll click on that, and then here you'll see there's a MetaHuman body topology and a MetaHuman head topology that will be included in the project files linked below in the description. So let's grab the head and open that up. And when that comes in, let's zoom out here, it's going to look like that. So come down here and let's set the rotation to -90. And it's going to be up there. And hold down Alt to move. Gosh, every 3D software is like different controls to move around. Anyway, all right, so that's our MetaHuman topology. Let's go ahead and create another load geometry node, and this is the one that we will use to load our demon guy. So we'll go ahead and select that one, and just go ahead and load single file. Okay, and as you can see, that loaded in down there. So let's just grab that and we'll scoot it up. And it's a little bit small, so let's try scaling that up ×2. That's a little big. So we're just trying to get it close to the other 1.8, 7. Yeah, doesn't have to be perfect. I think that looks good. Then we're going to right click and we're going to create a select point pairs node. And we are going to hook our two geometries up to that. So grab those little pick whips there and connect them to there. And now if you actually select that node and you come over here to this tab over here, you can come to the visual editor and you'll see that we have them both side by side. And if you come down here and then click sync views, and then you'll now be able to move around and it will sync with it. Gosh, I can never remember which ones to click. If you hit F, that will actually focus it, and then hold Alt and right and left click, and now you can actually move stuff around properly. Okay. You can also hit S and it will snap to like the nearest viewpoint. So that is a little helpful. Okay, so now we want to get some actual materials on our meshes. And so let's come up here and we'll go and add a load image node. And in here we will select the material for our MetaHuman head that comes with the files for this project. Go ahead and select that. And you can just then connect it to there. And then you can just connect the load image to there. And if we come down here, that is starting to show up. And then over here, we'll add another load image, and we'll load the color, we'll load the diffuse map of the demon. So select that and connect those. And if we come over here, great. And by the way, if you come up here and select the geometry, you can turn off things like the wireframe. So I'll just do that really quickly and then come back here and select that, hit F. So that's going to make it a little bit easier as we apply the points. So we're going to add some points on both of these that will help it, figure out exactly which part of this mesh should go on to this mesh. So we'll come over here and click on this little node here and pull that off, and then right click, and we are going to add a cartoon wrapping node. And this is the node that does all the magic. And there's a regular wrapping node, but I found that using the cartoon one works best when actually wrapping something a little bit slightly less humanoid. Like, in fact, it might also have to do with the mesh topology of the 3D mesh generator. It might just need the more extreme cartoon wrapping node to work with this. So anyway, just use that. I know it works. And what we want to do is we want to connect the geometry nodes to these points on the cartoon wrapping node. Great. All right, so now we can click on the cartoon wrapping node and it's going to start to look like this. And we can see, the MetaHuman geometry overlaid on our demon. Okay. All right, so let's come back to the select point pairs node over here and make sure you're in the visual editor tab, and we're going to start adding points to these. Okay, so what does that mean? I'm going to start clicking over here and assigning points on this geometry and then lining up corresponding ones on this geometry. And that's basically to be like, oh, the corner of the eye on this mesh goes in here, right? And like the corner of the mouth goes here, and so on. And we'll do some parts around the horns to make sure we get some of this geometry to wrap around those. And the more points you can put, the better. I've been doing between 50 and 100 points, based on how much extra geometry there is. So we'll just get started and we'll see how far we get with this one. I don't think it should be that many, but we'll see. So the first thing I'm going to do is come over to this left geometry tab, which corresponds to this area over here. And where it says symmetry, I'm going to turn on X symmetry. So now you can see as I'm moving my my cursor, there's a corresponding point over there. So let's just start with these. And you see there's a 1 and a 2 there. And then you'll see up here, point count is 2. And then over here, point count is 0, right? Okay, so we want these to stay the same. So if you start clicking along and you get to like 36 over here and 32 over here, you messed up. You want them to be the same. Okay, so over here we're going to leave this on. I'm going to click on the right geometry tab and we're going to leave it at no symmetry. So when we're over on this viewport, we place the points individually. So we got 1, 2. We'll go 1 and 2, and we can kind of look around. Yeah, that looks great. Yep, and that's just because the symmetry doesn't seem to work as well on this mesh, the 3D generated one. Okay, so now we're just going to start placing, points all over, and like I said, the more the better, and I'm going to speed this up quite a bit here, but you can see how I'm just kind of going into, the really detailed areas and, trying to just give as much information to wrap as possible. Really going over the main features, the corners of the mouths, and, you can see I'm clicking along both the top and the bottom of the lip to kind of show where the mouth is parted. Along the jawline, the cheekbones, dimples along the cheeks, creases on the neck. And so you can see that I'm also keeping track of the numbers as I am clicking. And like I said, if you ever start to, get out of sync with those numbers, it's best to just back up to where they're in sync and then keep going. And actually, that happens to me in this part right here as I am clicking around the horns. You can see how I'm kind of like putting, and there I'm undoing all of those and just backing up to where the points are back in sync. But you can see how I'm kind of clicking around, to show where the wrap should go on the horns. And then, around the back of the head, just to get a little bit more information back there. And there we go. And now we can come over to the cartoon wrapping node and click on that. And we should be able to just hit compute, and it should do the wrap for us. And now this is sped up about 10x, but you can see the MetaHuman topology start to form over the AI generated topology. Okay, that's looking pretty good, but what we want to do is we want to actually add another node over here. We want to add a brush node, and this will allow us to sort of clean up the wrap. And the way we want to set this up is to take the cartoon wrapping and plug that into the far left node here. And then we're going to take this load geometry one. We're going to bring it down to this third one here. And then we're going to take the other load geometry and we're going to bring that down. We're going to put it in the second one there. Okay, and so it's going to start to look like this. So what we want to do with the brush node selected is we want to kind of clean up the geometry here. And so we've got the wireframe turned on, and if you don't see the wireframe, you can scroll over here and click on that. You can also hide it. And right now it says display mode texture. Let's switch this to color. I think it makes it a little bit easier to see. And so you can see kind of like these areas where the mesh is creased. Overall, this wrap did really, really well, actually, compared to some of the other ones. You know, there's really just some stuff in kind of the eyelids, like some weird, you know, fold there or something. Maybe up around these horns, you see there's kind of some geometry here. And we want to just clean that up. And so right now I have the relax tool selected. And so, oops. The tool was way too strong. So let's come over here and just turn that down a lot. And okay, well, you know, that's kind of cleaning that up a little bit more than I would like. Let's turn the strength down even more. Maybe we'll turn the radius down. Okay, that looks good enough. And here I'm going to do the other horn, and then you know, I turn the strength back up, and then, you know, I'm just cleaning up the under the eyelids, you know, wherever that mesh is really overlapping, or it, you know, it looks like some vertices are kind of like squished together. But overall, this was a really good wrap, and there wasn't too much to clean up. Okay, and as soon as you're done cleaning up the mesh, you can come over to your brush node and hit accept. And that will lock in those changes. And then you come over here and you can right click and come down and go to save output geom. And we'll save the OBJ file and we'll call this demon wrapped. Save. This is fine. And so now we need to get the newly wrapped textures out as well. And so we do that with a texture transfer node. So we'll just grab one of those and put that in there. And then we want to take the output of the cartoon wrapping, and we're going to put this into this middle node here. And then we're going to take the output from this geometry up here and put that into this first node down here. Okay, and if we have the transfer texture node selected, we can come up here and click on our viewport 2D, and you'll see that you have the unwrapped, the properly unwrapped mesh here. And if you come and look at our input up here, this is what the texture originally looked like. So this is what we want to export here, but you'll see that the resolution is low here, so we can turn this up to 4096 by 4096. Oops. There we go. And that looks much better. And you'll see that there's like some empty space up here. We can fix that by just adding an extrapolate image node. So pull that off and right click, extrapolate image, and we'll click on that. And that should just automatically generate that. Great. And now we can right click on this and we can save this output image. So I'm going to save this as demon wrapped D for diffusion. That looks good. Awesome. And so what we want to do now is actually use this pipeline that we've got built here to actually quickly rewrap our normal map and our roughness map that we got from our mesh. So you can do that by just clicking on the load image at the top and then loading the other ones. So I'll load in the normal map here. And all I'm doing here is just repeating that same process and saving the wrapped normal map and then loading and saving the wrapped roughness map. All right, so let's quickly make sure we have all the plugins we need. So we need to get all of the MetaHuman plugins installed. So just search for those and select all of those. Yes, and we don't need that last one, and go ahead and restart. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is import the assets that we created. So I'm going to grab the daemon wrapped OBJ that we exported out of wrap and just drop that right in there. And what we're going to do is in the offset rotation, we're going to put 90 degrees, and let's import that. All right, and that is looking good. And let's get the textures in here now. We want those 3 wrapped materials, so you can just grab all 3 of them and bring them in here. Okay, and so now we can just go ahead and right click and we can create a MetaHuman character. We'll call this guy Demon. So let's go ahead and open. And we have some missing plugins, so just go ahead and enable missing, and it will probably ask to restart, and just go ahead and do that. Go ahead and save. All right, let's go ahead and open up Demon. All right, and we want to go to the Head tab, and we want to go to Conform, and we're going to go to From Template, and this is where we will select the mesh that we have created. So let's go ahead and put that in there and just go ahead and click conform. All right, and that looks pretty good. So this looks really good, actually. Let's go ahead and make that bigger. This is also the part where if you had something kind of messed up mouth, for example, you could blend one of these preset mouths or something, and that would kind of fix that. So if you have like some weird deformations, or like if you want to fix the nose, I mean, obviously we like how that looks, that's what we want it to look like, but say you wanted to change it to something else, you just throw that in there, and you can change it to a more human nose, but we don't want to do that. Okay, great. Let's see. I don't see anything that needs any fixing. If we come back to it, like, let's see, sometimes I like to go to the teeth and just click that tab, and it will pull back the lips, and you can just kind of make sure the mouth is working properly that way. But that looks pretty good. Let's make his teeth anyway, you can mess around with that. That looks good. And we can also change the body over in this tab. And if you click on the body tab and then come over to model, you have all of these things that you can change. You can really sculpt your own, character as much as you want. But I'm actually interested in a tab here that should be here, and that is the original MetaHuman bodies. And you can actually enable that if you don't see that here in your project settings. You can go up to the project settings, and you can scroll down to the plugins over here and click on the MetaHuman character and go to show compatibility mode bodies, and go ahead and close that. And I think you just have to close the character creator and just open it back up. And now if we go to body and model, and great, we have the fixed compatibility, and you can see all the original MetaHuman bodies there. So I am just going to put some armor on this guy because I don't have time to do the whole body for this tutorial. That will be in a later video. But let's just do the normal male tall body type. And that's just because I have some armor that can fit this guy. Okay. And if you click on the materials tab over here, we can now apply the texture to the head. So come down here to enable texture overrides and click that. And for the face, we can come down here and we will do base color, and we can just search demon wrapped D. Great. All right, that's starting to look pretty cool. Keep in mind a lot of this, detail is baked, like this lighting detail, but still looks pretty good, I think. And, it'll look even better. We can come down here and I think we can add more. We can add the normal map in here. So we'll just go down here and search demon wrapped N, and there we go. That's already looking better. Okay, so I'm not going to go too much into all the different sculpting you can do with the head. Obviously, like I mentioned, you can add transforms, you can go to sculpt and really move stuff around, but I really like how this turned out, so I'm not going to mess with it too much. I'm actually just going to go over here and we're going to go to create full rig. And once that's done, let's go over to download textures and we will download 8K. And once that's done, you can come over here to assembly and come down here and just click assemble. All right, and now that that's assembled, we can come up here and we can save and close that and come down here and save all. Gotta watch out for Crashy Magoo. And we can come down to MetaHumans, and here is the demon, and we can go ahead and open up that blueprint and can come and click on the viewport and zoom on in, and that's looking pretty cool. But if we wanted to, modify the material a little bit more, we could click on that and we can come over here and double click on the face, and in the material instance, we can come down to the normal and we can actually increase the strength of that. I like to turn that up a little bit. There we go. Just make those normals pop a little bit more. You could go even more if you wanted to. You can of course change the roughness, and I think we can make him a little slimier, so we can turn the roughness down. That'll give him, a wet appearance. And then I have some assets that I've added to my project that I'm going to use to help finish this. So I have some eye materials that are really cool from these modular orcs. And let's see what would look good on this guy. If we select the face and come to the eye materials here, let's go with this crazy demon looking eye. Yeah, that's kind of cool, right? And then I'm just gonna slap some of this modular armor from Polyphoria on this guy, and I'm gonna call it a day.